New England Patriots quarterback and Super Bowl MVP Tom Brady is appealing the 4-game suspension handed to him for the use of deflated footballs in the AFC title game in January. We asked Republican columnist and veteran sportswriter Ron Chimelis for his take on this entire controversy surrounding the Pats and their marquee player.
It's laughable. I guess that puts it into the excessive category. My biggest problem with this, I'm a champion of fair play. I think there's reason to think that he was involved somehow, or at least knew about it. But this is a league that it is grossly hypocritical about its meting out of punishment. It's turned a blind eye or ignored, dismissed domestic abuse and violence off the field, violence on the field, but it's cracking down because a couple of ounces in a football weren't according to specifications, and I have a problem with that part of it.
Well, let's go. An important part of what you said there, I think a lot of people have said in the perspective on this. Guy beats his wife or wife-to-be. It's on video in a elevator at a casino in Atlantic City. He gets 2 games initially. You mess with the football, you get 4 games.
Yeah,
What's wrong with that?
Everything. How can you justify the ethics of that, the logic of that? I have tried not to be one of those people that finds fault with everything Roger Goodell does, but it bothers me that there does not seem to be any moral consistency to this. He's playing the crackdown judge on Brady with skimpy evidence, circumstantial evidence at best. He had a video of Ray Rice, and he gave him half as much of a penalty. I know that one thing doesn't equate to the other, but to me, Rice's situation was much worse and much more easily identifiable. So why crack down on Brady? To me, it's a public relations reaction, and I don't think that's a good way to mete out punishment.
The Patriots seem to be fighting back. In fairness to you, we are taping this before the actual deadline for Tom Brady to file his appeal. His lawyer says, and his agent says, you bet he's filing an appeal. The Patriots have put together a website, not a page on their website, a new website, Wells Report in Context, a 20,000-word document. That's a small book that basically is saying, here's the problems, the inconsistencies we see in the investigation by the NFL. Clearly, they are fighting mad.
Well, they're fighting mad. I don't know if I'll have time to read it. You know, Jim, the Gettysburg Address is 270 words. The Wells Report was 243 pages. This response is 20,000 words. I mean, what is this, War and Peace? But I understand the Patriots being this upset. I'm not going to read it, but there are major inconsistencies. There are at least questions about the report, whether it was done in a fair fashion, whether it left out important facts that could have been gleaned. I think if the Patriots are going to make a real statement and an appeal, and I don't like it when teams do this, they have to go outside the NFL to maybe some legal authority. And I'm not a lawyer, but I would think they would have a case.
Well, I will tell you, I have heard in the last couple of hours a number of legal authorities, law professors being interviewed by some of the Boston media, and they're saying exactly that. That's what they think this website is about, establishing the Patriots' need to move for a remedy in the courts, in the legal system.
Well, if they feel that the penalty is not only too excessive but too arbitrary, I think that's the only avenue. Because to me, if you're appealing the penalty, you're appealing it basically to the same body that gave it to you. So how much optimism can we have for that? Again, I don't like to see sports controversies wind up tying up our courts, but I can understand why the Patriots think this is unfair and a hanging jury type of thing, a jury maybe of one man. That's a lot to expect the Patriots to swallow.
What do you say to people who say this needs to be taken seriously because, like it or not, deny it or not, by the athletes, they're role models, and our kids look at them, and if they're cutting corners, if they're cheating, however you want to put that in, the word into what context, what is it saying to the next generation, our kids coming up, about how you conduct yourself?
I don't have a problem with that argument. I wish we were more consistent with it. I think the NFL should do that with Ray Rice and with all of these, weapons violations and this, long list of transgressions that their athletes are getting involved with. And I think if they showed some spine to that, then we could swallow a strong suspension if they were convinced that there was cheating involved. And there's reason to think there was some tampering, that at least he knew about it. So I do think there are serious, I joke about it sometimes, how important is this? I think fairness and ethics are important. I don't diminish that, but I think you have to do it more consistently than the NFL has done.
Long before the under-inflated footballs, we'd heard a lot about the close relationship, really friendship between Patriots owner Bob Kraft, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Kraft was a big booster of Goodell. Kraft played a big role in reaching the current labor contract with the NFL Players Association. Did Roger Goodell have to come down hard on the Pats, or have people pointing at him saying, oh, he's taking care of his friend Bob Kraft and his team?
Well, that's a question I think Roger Goodell would only have to answer, because if he did crack down hard just to prove a point, then he's a very insecure man. If he's saying, look, I don't have to pander to this guy. He's not my friend. He's just another owner. That's not a very good reason to put out a penalty that you otherwise wouldn't do. I've never been convinced that Kraft and Goodell are anything more than business associates. They both want to make money. I don't have any problem with that, but I'd hate to think that's the driving force, just to prove that he could do it, and he could do it to Kraft.
With all the real troubles in the world and in the NFL itself, and you cover, as we said, you don't just cover and write sports anymore. You are a columnist at large. Is all of the attention we're giving this, and right now here is part of it, the ultimate recognition of the media, celebrity-based pop culture we've become?
Well, yes, I do think so. And the media gets blamed for that a lot. But I think the public has to share an equal part of the blame. I think we all get wrapped up in things that matter but are not necessarily as significant as we make them out to be. This is significant because we like football and we like to watch the best players play. But as you mentioned, I don't want to get too cerebral about this. There are bigger fish to fry than whether Brady plays football, and there are bigger fish than whether the inflated ball wasn't quite up to specifications or not. So absolutely, we're obsessed with celebrity status. That's why the magazines sell at the supermarkets. That's why the Kardashians are famous. That's why we care about Brady so much.
Ron Chimelis, Springfield Republican, thanks for your time, sir. Always good to have you in.
Thank you.